Okay. What is up, everybody? Brian Mendler back in your life on another edition of the podcast. And today I am super excited to be joined by my friend, Katie Ralston. And I have to say, we go back kind of a long way, you know? So I was thinking about this last night. I think I first met you maybe about 10, was it 10 years ago, do you think? And I remember coming to your classroom. So you were teaching, I think it was self-contained special ed. It was definitely special ed. And I remember coming to your room. Do you remember that? And what do you remember about that, if you do?
I do. That was my first year of teaching. And
That was your first year?
yeah, it was my first year. Yep. Middle school special education. I loved those students. And yeah.
Well, you were in Olean, right?
Yes.
So teaching self-contained special ed, how long did you do that job and what did you learn from it?
Wow. What did I learn from that? You can't answer that in one setting. You learn a lot about a lot. Let's see. How long was I there? I was in that classroom for 5 years, 5 or 6 years. Yeah. I think one of the most important things to remember that I really realized there is students don't need another mother. Students don't need another friend. Students need a role model. Students need someone who believes in them. And students will always work to the expectation that you set. So we always had a motto in our classroom: can't is not an option. You either can, you will, or you won't, but can't isn't an option. And we always called ourselves scholars. We always said we are scholars, and scholars don't accept can't. You work to the level that you have to get where you can be. And I really believe in that anywhere, like special education, classroom, work, anything. I think that's an important motto to live by.
Yeah, I like that. Like you can, you will, or you won't. But that, because those are just so definitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
but can't is not an option.
can't is not an option. So now you're a principal. So you've gone, take me kind of through your career a little bit.
Sure. So I was middle school special education teacher. Absolutely loved that. I went from that position into 1 year as a teacher on special assignment for curriculum development and professional development at the middle high school level. And then from there, I applied for the position of middle school principal at Cuba Rushford Middle School. So I was middle school principal for 4 years, and then the district restructured. So then I transitioned into 612 lead principal. So now I'm middle and high school lead principal here.
So tell me, you didn't kind of answer the question before. So when I said, what did you learn from that? What did you learn from that makes you good at your job today? I'm just like curious of some things that you took out of the classroom with you that make you a good leader.
Yeah, I think believe in people, and they work to the level that they know they can. Trust people to do the work that they're capable of. And 3 things I always say: listen, learn, and lead with passion. I think first you have to listen, whether you're in the classroom or you're a leader. Then you have to learn about the students, about the people, about the environment, about the situation, and then you lead. And you have to be passionate about all of that for it to really make a difference and for you to really, have an impact on what you're doing.
Is it hard sometimes? Like, do you ever get, like, what do you do? Is it, I don't know the best way to ask this. Like, is it difference? Like we have difficult kids in special ed as teachers and, and in all grade levels. What about as a leader? Do you have difficult employees sometimes? And if so, how do you manage those? And is it different than you would handle a difficult kid in the classroom?
I think, yes, of course, you always have difficult people regardless of the situation, right? But I think truthfully, like people's intent is never to be difficult. People have an ultimate goal. And I think that's the most important thing for us to recognize is we are working toward the same goal, right? Our goal is ultimate success for our students. And sometimes it's easy to get frustrated by the other things that come into play that you have to consider. And a lot of times that comes across as I'm being difficult, or this is a personal problem, or when it's not. It's, we have a professional obligation. Educators are passionate. We want our students to be successful. And so what comes across as difficult is truthfully just a focus on a final goal, and I'm not getting there as quickly or as easily as I need to. So I think it's important to really talk through everything and again, listen and learn to understand where it is all coming from.
I
And I
agree.
think
I
the
think
same is true with students, behavior is driven by something. And so understanding what it is that's making things challenging for them, or why they're acting out that way, or why certain things are going a certain way, is important.
right. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's the same in all aspects. Like there's always something driving the behavior to the forefront. And I think that's critical as a teacher with kids, right? And one of the lines that I like to say is hear what kids are saying, stop listening to how they're saying it. Because what happens with, and I think that's true with a lot of people, their how often ruins their what. Their what is quite intelligent, but the way they deliver the message is so bad that what they're saying gets lost.
Hmm. See, I always use that with students too, though, because yes, their what is really important. That's what you have to uncover. That's what you have to listen to. Root cause. And I think a lot of times too, the most important part is keep asking the question why, because typically the problem that looks like it's the one on the forefront is not the root cause of the problem. So I have this thing, right? Like ask why 5 different times. You can ask it in different ways, of course, so you're not constantly like why, but ask why five different times so that you get to like, okay, so the real problem here is this. And then you're actually addressing it at the root. And then I think when students feel like you can talk through things like that with them, or you can reassess the situation with them, then you can move from the what to the how. And my theory, truthfully, is like, yes, our job is to educate students. It's to help them as a whole child, as a person, as a human being. But kids say, right, I want to make money someday. All kids want to make money someday. Then it is my job to teach you how to speak and act the language of money. So you have to be worth paying for someday. And if someone's
Mm.
putting money into you, you also have to know how to say the what. And it is our job to work through that. But people don't want to hear that if you're first not understanding the what or the root cause. So it's important to get there first and then work through the steps of the how, which has
Interesting.
become really important too during everything with coronavirus and being virtual and digital. It's very easy to hide behind a screen. So, people can fire off an email without feeling too much accountability to it, or people can turn their camera off and not really be accountable to what's on the screen. So it's been important too to even talk about the way you write an email or what you put into a text message. You have to say out loud as well. And if saying it out loud kind of
Mm.
makes you cringe or like, oh, I don't really want to say that, then you shouldn't have put it in writing either, because your writing is your voice.
That's a great point, and it also pertains to social media, right? People can hide behind
Absolutely.
the camera, or hide behind the keyboard in social media, and I think that's a great point. Everybody before they tweet should have to read it out loud and hear the actual words that they're saying, especially when you're commenting on something.
Right. And that helps with kids a lot too. Like when we have issues with social media come up, or an email that shouldn't have been sent. And that is always my first strategy. Like read out loud what this text message says,
Mm.
or read out loud what was posted on this post. They say like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. Well, is this you who posted it? Yes. Read it out loud. What does it sound like? And 9 times out of 10 they say like, that isn't the way I meant that to come across, or that isn't what I
Hmm.
was trying to say. um but it is what was read, and it is what was felt by the other person. And that's an important part of communication, is understanding it's not just about what you say, it's about how the other person hears it and
That's a
interprets
great
it as
point.
well.
So what do you do next though? What's the next step? So if you, after you, like, let's say you have a kid in your office and you have them doing that and they read it out loud and they hear that, what's the next step? Like, do they
So
go apologize to someone, or do they try to make it right? Like,
right. So of course it depends on the situation. It depends on the age, all of that. But I never say you have to go apologize to someone. You have to like that then is not authentic. We do talk through, we have the steps. I am glad I wish I would have. So if there's something that you're glad you did in that, let's not change that. I wish I would have. Let's talk about what that was, and how tomorrow do you turn your I wish I would have into I'm glad I. And typically that's what triggers someone to say, I need to go fix this, or there's something that I need to change.
Mm,
But they figure that out through the conversation as well. Um, and again, like, it is my place to help people understand like the consequences of their actions. It's not up to me to get mad. It's not up to me to, yell or anything like that. There's nothing that comes from that, but understanding like this is what you chose to do. This is the impact of what you chose to do.
mm,
Are you okay with that impact? Are you okay with what's happening right now? Or does it need to be different next time? And if it needs to be different next time, what does that look like? That I guess trajectory of conversation is most important in middle school, because that's when you start to change those, the thought process, and you start to become aware of what your actions do.
mm.
Um, and I think it's always, I'm a very firm believer, like very important to inform the parents, but again, the student has to be part of that. So my practice typically is to call a parent on speakerphone, and I say, I have Brian here. Brian's going to explain to you why he's in here. If he leaves anything out, I'll fill it in, but I think Brian's going to be able to tell you the whole story.
Mm.
And then the student explains to the parent what happened. And I think that's important for two reasons. One, again, it's accountability for what you did, but it also makes it easier on the parents and the students. Like, the parent has now heard it from the student, saves the conversation of later. Like, your principal called me. Why did she call me today? And the student's like, oh, I don't know. Or, you know
Right.
what I mean? Then
Yep.
there's just this whole runaround that doesn't need to happen. We need to like address the behavior, make a plan going forward. So avoid the unnecessary in between.
Very good. So, what one of the things that I've found during COVID that's interesting, and I was thinking about this while you were saying it, is so the person says it out loud, right? And I also think maybe at some point we should record them saying it out loud so they can watch themselves saying it and hear it. And what I've learned during COVID is there's really nothing more nauseating than watching myself speak or teach, right? Like, watching myself do my job is so incredibly awful. Like, I like it too because it makes me better, but man, it is so hard to watch yourself because you hear yourself say things and you're like, oh, why did I say it like that? Or why did it come across like that? Or I didn't mean to say it like that, or slow down or lower your voice. And, I was saying to somebody the other day, like, I've gotten to the point where I don't think I need anyone to evaluate me anymore because I'm so critical of myself. And I think that's another place that we could utilize that as educators, is when a kid says or does something, to have them watch themselves do it or say it. And what a different level. How much interaction do you then have with the parent after that?
Again, kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But usually that's the conversation. I end it with, obviously you guys are going to talk tonight when he or she comes home. If after that there's more questions or there's a part of the story that I wasn't aware of, please make sure you call me back. And that's really it.
A lot of
A
a
lot,
lot of people think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there is something that, does require follow up later, I make a point right then and there. I say, like, okay, I'm going to follow up with you 2 weeks from today. I have it on my calendar to call you that day, see how things have changed between now and then. And that's important for me, just to make sure I stay on it, that I guess accountability for myself to say to them on the phone, this is the date I'll call you, and put it on my calendar then.
One of the things that I like about what you said is it sounds like really your mindset is always one of instruction. Like, your thought process is always, whether the kid, is in your office or wherever they are, the thought is, I'm going to instruct them. I'm going to make them better. The thought process isn't one of consequence or of punishment. Am I right about that? Like, are you always thinking in terms of, how do I instruct the kid? How do I make the kid better at whatever it is?
Yes, absolutely. I would say there's definitely not a mindset of punishment. There is like an understanding of consequence, not me searching for like, what can this consequence be, but helping the student understand every action, good and bad, there is a consequence. A lot of times we see consequence as a negative, but
Right.
it is the result of something that you do, and it can be positive as well.
Absolutely. So how does that work though for you? Like so because a lot of schools, that I go to, it's they give consequences. A kid does something, they come to you, right? The principal, and the principal gives them detention or in-school suspension. Are you more under the mindset of we're just going to work on fixing the problem, whatever the problem is, than addressing it with a consequence?
Yep. So yeah, and of course, we have the code of conduct that we follow, and the discipline matrix that we have to have in place as
Mhm.
well. But it none of that happens without a conversation, and none of that happens without let's address the situation. What got you here? How are you here? How do we not come here again? Um, and there's two things too. We also have in place. It's called mindfulness matters at the middle school level, and that is like, before you get written up, if you're asked to go to the office, or, we have some students too who are very good at saying, I need to go to the office. I need
Mm.
to step out of this class right now. And they get the mindfulness matters reflection sheet, and it says, describe the situation, what led to this situation. And then it's those two questions. I'm glad I wish I would have, and then we talk through that, and that's rooted in the work from Sweethearts and Heroes as well. So it also starts with the question, were you being a sweetheart, were you being a hero? And
Mm.
sometimes kids put no just automatically, because they're like, if I'm here, must be I wasn't. But when we talk through the situation, like, you actually were doing something that you were being a hero to this other student. It was perceived a different way because of this, so let's talk about how we change that next time. So it's also helping them realize, like, everything you're doing is not bad. Everything you're doing is not wrong. Can we always be striving to get better? Of course. Is there something we can do differently? Let's figure out what that is and try for it next time.
Right. And I feel like that same exact form should be filled out by the adult, right? Like adults should have to fill that out too. I'm serious. Like I say this all the time. I think that every referral form should have a spot that says what the adult did wrong and what the adult could do differently next time, because usually the referral form is all about the kid, right? And I'm not saying the kid's not a part of it. They absolutely are, but usually the adult is a part of it too. And usually there's something within some type of situation, or especially a power struggle, that the adult could have done differently to get themselves out of it. And without reflecting on ourselves, I feel like we're missing an important part of the puzzle.
Yep, and we do address that as well. Oftentimes, after the mindfulness matters sheet is filled out, there is a meeting with the student, the teacher, and either myself or Mr. Fee. And it is like understanding, this is how I heard you when I was trying to teach. This is what it looked like. This is what I was trying to relay to you. And that often is, ends much better than if you don't have that conversation. That's how you avoid the repeat. We always say you repeat what you don't repair. So you have to stop and repair before you repeat it again.
I like your little one-liners. You got some good one-liners. You say that one again.
Thanks.
You have to repair.
You
Say it again.
repeat what you don't repair.
You repeat what you don't repair. That's
Yep.
good. So
So how
tell
do
me
we have
about yourself. Like, did you as a kid, like, did you want to be a teacher? Like, where did you grow up? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so a sixth grader just asked me this yesterday.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to be a teacher. It sounds really weird to say. I knew I wanted to be a teacher like even before I went to school. I played school. I like all the time what just wanted to be a teacher. And that never changed when I went to school. The only thing that changed through school was what grade level I wanted to teach. For a very long time, it was third grade. Then it changed to seventh. Um, I just love learning, and I love kids. I love being in school. And, when I was in high school, I worked, our neighbors had a daughter who was blind. And so I worked with her through the summers to like maintain her, her schooling. And I learned such an amazing amount of information and life lessons and things about myself from her. So then that's really like what ignited special education for me. So then graduated high school. I went to college at Edinburgh University for elementary and special education. I graduated from Edinburgh and started teaching. I was going to move away from home and teach in Erie, Pennsylvania. And before I even was like interviewing for jobs, someone asked me, like, if you picked your ideal job, regardless of location, regardless of pay, what would your ideal job be? I said middle school, special education, students with learning disabilities,
Mm,
hands down. So I accepted a job that was a different job. And a couple weeks after that, Only In called me and had an opening. So I interviewed for that. And it was the job that I wanted. It's the one when you came to my classroom, it was
mm-hmm,
that position. Then I went back to school during that time for my master's in curriculum design and instruction at Gannon University. And then from there, I honestly feel like I just do my best work when I'm learning. So I just keep going. So when I graduated with my master's, then I went for my principal and superintendent certification at Canisius College. Then got this job, and then I felt like I was a full-time student again, because the first year as a principal is like
mm,
literally not one thing you learn in a class ever is what comes across your desk. Someday, I say someday I'm going to write a course and I'm going to sell it to colleges and teach it. And it's going to be called What They Don't Teach You.
mm.
And the whole course is going to be case studies of what comes across our desk on a daily basis. So then was principal. And then 3 years ago, I started my doctorate. I'll finish that in August this year. So I'm at Vanderbilt University right now for a doctorate in organizational learning and leadership. And my focus for my research for that is basically rural schools,
Mm.
specifically school family partnerships and how that changes because of COVID-19. But then also right now, a big part of my work is like broadband access for rural areas.
Yeah. So I'm curious to what you kind of glossed over it. You said you learned so much that summer or those summers working with the child who was blind. Tell me a little bit more about that and what did you learn from that?
I think the biggest thing, Brian, is that it, human nature, you often like deflect your own thoughts onto other people or your own feelings onto other people. So Christine was incredible and like was raised of the mindset and still lives by the mindset like, yes, I am blind, but I am not disabled. This is inconvenient. Like I live with an inconvenience, not a disability, and she
Mm,
functions that way. And so oftentimes, right, you'd think like, oh my gosh, I feel bad, or this must be frustrating. But like that was just not even in her mind. That wasn't the way that went. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
don't deflect that onto them, or don't assume that students are feeling what you think they're feeling, which was just really amazing. Um, Christine was also very important to me. Gosh, she's like one of the most special people ever in my life. But because she was blind, right? She couldn't see my facial expression. She couldn't see my body language. So much was about my tone and like, oh, it sounds like you're frustrated. It sounds like you're really tired, or I can tell you're really happy with what I just did, and so it just made me very aware also of like how your tone comes across or what it
Mm,
sounds like. And as you can tell, I am very much like facial expression.
mm.
I talk with my hands. I'm very, so if you
Right.
can't see that, then you only hear the tone. And so I think that really influenced me as well in that way.
Powerful. So you talked a lot about your successes as, in education and in school. Have you had any struggles in your life that have helped define you?
Yes.
Anything
Mhm.
you want to talk about? I would love to hear about it.
I'm sure you would. Yeah, I think,
Well,
well, there's,
I feel like in general though, as people, we're taught to like talk about all the good things. And I think
right.
what actually really motivates people is hearing people's struggles and how they overcame them to get where they are. And for me, that's certainly what motivates me.
Yeah. I think there's a few different things to consider. Like this actually was a question to me in an interview one time. The superintendent of this other school said to me, your transcripts show success, your letters are great. So how does someone who has never had a setback work with people who have setbacks? And I was
Mm,
actually quite offended by that question. Like,
yeah.
don't assume that I haven't had a setback, right? But it is how you handle what comes at you. It is how your response to things that happen. And I would say, my biggest struggle easily to life so far is my mom got sick and passed away, and
Mm.
she died August of 2015, and I started my principal position August of 2015. And I remember, this is going to be the hardest job of my life, the most responsibility I've ever had, and this is like a very severe loss to me. Like, how can I lead a school? How can I be an effective leader, be a great principal when, like, personally I am seriously struggling right now? And it was one of the most amazing things. Honestly, I really believe that, like, the timing of that is exactly what I needed. It was like,
Mm.
don't lose sight of the strength you have. Don't lose sight of, what you are capable of and where you can go and the impact you can have. And of course, like, the school I'm in was absolutely incredible and people are amazing. But it's like that saying, right? You don't know how strong you can be until you have to be. And that's your option.
Mm.
Like, that's your only option, is to be that strong. So I think always my thought is like, it's how you respond. Like, life isn't happening to you, right? Like, it's not like, man, this is happening to me. It's like, take what it is and make more happen.
What happened to your mom? I'm just curious.
She had breast cancer. But by the time when they found her breast cancer, it was already stage 4, liver, skin, bone, and
Really?
breast. So,
Wow. So it
yeah.
started, yeah, my mom had breast cancer too. So my mom had breast cancer when I was in 11th grade.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll never forget it. Like I came home from 10th grade. I was in 10th. My brother was in 11th. And we came home from school and my mother and father were sitting on the couch in our living room and they said, we have to tell you something. And they sat us down and my mother said, I have cancer and I'm having surgery tomorrow. And literally they found it that day and she had surgery the next day and she
Wow.
had a full mastectomy and yeah, and I think I can't remember exactly now, but I think it was like 4 years ago that my parents all took us on a trip to Jamaica to celebrate 20 years of my mother being free of cancer. So
That's
they
amazing.
I know. They caught it, luckily for us, they caught it very early. And that day, I'll never forget this. That day, my brother looked at me. So my parents got up from the couch and my brother looked at me and he said, I'm going to cure cancer one day. Right. My brother was an 11th grader. And today my brother's one of the leading hematology oncology blood cancer specialists in the United States. And that
Wow.
moment put him on his career path for exactly where he was going to go in his life. And he's been on a mission to fix cancer ever since. Pretty crazy,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, and I think one of the things too, I feel really fortunate and really blessed for, like, my mom, my mom and I were very, very close. And when I knew she was sick and, when it was like, okay, she has 3 months left, like, we just capitalized on that time. Like, there to this date is nothing that I think I wish I would have asked my mom or I wish I would have told my
Yeah.
mom. Like, all conversations were had, everything was said. And that I think that's really special. Like, that's,
Yeah.
important.
You're
Yeah.
able to have some closure,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's critical. Do you have
Yep.
brothers and sisters as well?
I do. 2 older brothers, no sisters, just me.
How much older are your brothers?
My brother Adam is 4 years older. My brother Joel is 2 years older.
Okay. I was just thinking because it's funny. My brother and I and then we have a little sister, but my sister's 14 years younger than me.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
know. Yeah. Are you close with them, your brothers?
Yes. Yes. I miss them like crazy right now. I haven't been able to see them. I haven't been able to see their kids, their wives. Yeah, I'm very close with both of them.
Why
Adam is,
is it the COVID thing that you haven't been able to see them?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Adam is an engineer in Connecticut. Joel is he teaches at St. Mary's College in South Bend, Indiana. He's an ornithologist and a biologist. So, yeah, they're awesome.
Fascinating. Are you
Yeah.
an aunt too?
Yes, the best one.
The best one. You get to spoil them. That's the best thing about being an uncle is you get to spoil them and give them back.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Right now, I would just keep them for months, though. It's been way too long.
I hear
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
So what else?
What else? I don't know. What else do you want me to talk about?
Whatever you got. So any kids, any hard to reach kids, that's kind of what we do on this show. Any struck kids that on a daily basis you see, or that you like to work with.
Well, I like to work with all kids, yes.
Right.
But yeah, this is one practice we put in place with COVID-19 to make sure every student has someone they connect with. We call it the CRA, the Cuba Rushford Ally. And every student at the start of the year filled out a form. They named their 3 most trusted adults in the school. So it didn't have to be, a current teacher. It could just be any adult that they trust most in the school. And then I spent a ton of time for every single student going through all 3 and then assigning allies to teachers. And it's not just teachers, it's Chris
Anybody.
and I, the other principal. Yep, both of us have them. Teaching assistants have them, our secretaries have them. Like,
That's great.
it's awesome. And so then the purpose of that is there's weekly connection, whether that's like in person, via text, via phone, via Zoom. The ally is not like, their job is not to be a liaison between the content area teacher and the parents. So it's not, hey, he's not doing his work or he's not coming to class. It is a connection to the student. So I notice you're not doing your work and you're not coming to class. What's going on? How can we fix that? And that, I think, is important all the way through. Like, it is important for us to realize that there are students that are hard for me to reach, but not hard for another teacher to reach. And then sometimes too much emphasis is put on, like, a student who is struggling, so we need to make sure they have a connection. All of our students need to have a connection, and this made sure that no one fell through the cracks and everybody has a someone.
Did you have any kids though that didn't have anyone, like when because I think the way you said it was each kid had to write down 3 adults. Did you have any kids that came back where they felt like they didn't have anyone? And if so, how did you handle that?
Yep. Not very many, but yes, there were some. And so then there's
literally they felt like they didn't have anybody.
Oh yeah, is what they told us. Yep. And that's hard. Like, that's hard to see, right? And it's hard also because a lot of adults, we think like, whoa, I really thought I had a connection. Yep. Like, I'm missing something. So then it's talking through that, like, what are we missing? And, so in that, we then sat with the student, looked at their schedule. Let's pick a person that can check in with you. So then we change the wording, right? So first it's like your 3 most trusted adults. And then it's like, who are you okay with checking in with you? And so then we assigned it that way and then work from there. Because as we know, like, a lot of times it takes one, right? You have to have feel like one person's on your side. And then you start to open up a little more and start to have more people on your side. But I think the thing we have realized too with all students is we have to be relentless. Like, we want you here. You may not be feeling connected to school. You may be avoiding school, but we notice when you're not here, and we're not going to let you not be here. So our school resource officer, Officer White, is incredible. And so he works very closely with Mr. Fee, and they go to students' homes and say, like, hey, we're waiting for you. We're here to get you. And bring the students here. And I think that's the important part too, is when students need to know we recognize when you're not here.
I remember, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember reading a study one time that said it was something like they asked teachers, they asked a whole bunch of teachers how much they connected with their students. And it was like 90% of teachers said that they connected with their students. And then they asked those same students of those teachers, and it was something like 20%. Like, the disconnect was so incredibly great between what the teachers believed and what the kids believed.
Yep.
I think that's true in a lot of different aspects of education. I think sometimes as educators, we believe things to be true that sometimes other people might look at and be like, well, I don't see it the same exact way. And that's why it's great to have that. What kind of benefit have you noticed that having on certain kids?
It's just who they're willing to open up. They're willing to share what's going on. Or they, might not be doing something in one class, or might not be coming to school for certain reasons, and we've been able to figure out why, and we've been able to then put in place, whether that's, you know, meeting with a counselor, setting up specific times with other teachers, or weekly check-ins with your
Yeah.
parents as well. Like, and again, it varies by student and every situation is different. But we're able to figure that out because authentic connections are made.
What else do you do? Are there any, so I love that strategy. Any other strategies that you do that you can tell my listeners?
Okay, let's see. We have our Be Awesome Day. Be Awesome Day is so much fun. I love that one. We've been doing that for 5 years. Be Awesome Day is a surprise to the students, so they don't know what day that's happening. Our teachers at the start of the school year every year get a new Be Awesome shirt, and then they're told ahead of time when the Be Awesome Day is. So like music is playing in the hallway. Our teachers are all down in the lobby, out on the sidewalk, out in the hallways with their Be Awesome shirts on. Kids are coming in, the music's playing, it's high fives, it's, all of that. High fives we can't do right now. So I bought everybody fly swatters that have hands on them. So we fly high five.
That's a great idea. That's
I mean, people thought I was crazy. They're like, are you kidding me? But it's
That's
great.
a great idea.
Yeah, it works out.
I love it.
And so on those days too, like teachers submit tickets. Now it's an electronic form also, so that as soon as you see something awesome happening, you submit it online. And so students are randomly selected. They get a shirt, they get an ice cream from the cafeteria. They're featured on our live Rebel Express show. And they get the Be Awesome Award, which we also include. Right now we have students on full virtual academy. They're included in that as well. I think that's important to keep all students involved in that. So that's at the middle school level. High school level, they were not as overly enthused, right, about like, let me get this t-shirt and have my picture taken and all that. So high school level is they earn Rebel recognition. So Rebel is our mascot, and it stands for respect, enthusiasm, bravery, empathy, and leadership. So students can be recommended for one of those character traits. And then high school ends up with a Rebel recognition breakfast. Our cafeteria manager is incredible. So they get a really fantastic breakfast. Nice. And then they're recognized for whatever trait they were, that they were nominated for. And then they get that paper. So they see the teacher who submitted them and what they wrote up about that trait for them.
So are you guys, so you have a fully virtual option, and then you're also in school not 5 days, right? Because you said Wednesdays you're not. So what's your schedule now there?
Right. So we have virtual academy, which is you're never in school and you're fully online.
What percentage of kids are in that?
Right now, percentage, I don't know. High school, we have 33, I believe, okay. 33 students. Okay, so our model is a hybrid model. So K through 2, they attend 4 days a week. We then 3 through 12 are split into blue group and red group. So blue group comes on Monday, Tuesday, red group comes on Thursday, Friday. But we also set up the schedule at the middle high school so that even when you're home, you follow the same schedule. You're just online during that time. And that was important for us, for our teachers. None of their classes are in person and online at the same time. So you have one period where it's all your in-person students, one period where it's all your online students. And that was important to us for a few reasons. It's hard to manage both platforms at the same time. We also want to capitalize on the time that we have in person, but we also need to make the online time engaging and worthwhile. So we have that set up like that. And then special education students come 4 days a week. We're doing what we can for students without internet to be here when they can, 4 days a week if possible. So yeah, and it's cool too, because we have some students who have come to us and said, like, this virtual thing at home is not working for me. Can I be here 3 days? Can I be here 4 days? And that's cool too, to see students advocating for themselves like that.
And they can be if they want to be.
There's a lot we have to look into. Yeah. But so it's busing capacity. It's capacity in the room when they're here. And if it is possible, we make it happen.
I think going forward that virtual will always be an option, right? I think this is kind of the new way of life. And I think actually for some kids, it's really good. I've talked about it multiple
Yeah.
times. My son is doing very well in this sort of new way of school. He's not a super social kid, and he likes being home more. And so for him, it's going really well. My daughter, it was a disaster. My daughter, we pay to go to a private school, and we send her 5 days. Apparently coronavirus doesn't hit in private schools. It only hits in public schools, because they're 5 days a week in my daughter's school. And but so yeah, it's been I feel like it's been really interesting to see during this how different it's been for different kids.
Yeah. And for teachers too, like it's, a lot of teachers have said, this is what like pushed me to try something new, or this is what pushed me to try a new strategy or a new platform. So it's different for everybody, but I think, yeah, it has its silver lining in there somewhere, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And has there been anything that you've learned leading through a pandemic, like different that's been different from, normal leadership?
Yeah. Yes, a lot. Um, I think anyway, communication is important under any circumstance, but very much so during this too. And that sometimes is what's frustrating for schools, right? Is like we're learning the new guidance or learning the changes at the exact same time the whole rest of the public is learning it. So
Hmm.
it is important for us to be transparent and say, we just learned this as well. So now we're trying to put in place what we need to, yeah, I think that's really important. Patience and understanding and forgiveness is like so important. And not like I said at the very beginning, right? Not to lose sight, like we all do have the same final goal. And this has made it harder, but it hasn't taken it away. So how do we make sure we stay focused on that and still be accepting and understanding of everything that is happening?
Cool.
Yeah.
Listen, these 45 minutes go quick. Is there any last bit of information or strategy that you would like to leave people with?
Yes, I have to share this one because this is
Share.
one of my favorite ones. I just did these this week, but class meetings with students is phenomenal to do as a principal. So at the middle school level, they're called class meetings. We have 4 rules to the class meetings. Rule number 1 is it's like Vegas. So what happens here stays here. And that's just a much more exciting rule than like, hey, don't tell anyone what is said here. And kids like really follow that. They don't share with their teachers, like they're good about it. Rule number 2 is you can't share names. You're here to talk about like situations you want me to be aware of in the school,
Mm.
but it's not, it's not to tell about other people. It's to make me aware of a situation. Rule number 3, no interrupting. You don't have to raise your hand, but don't interrupt when other people are speaking. And rule number 4 is you can't get in trouble for what you share in a class meeting. So share it with me and I can do what I can to fix it. And you're never in trouble for sharing what you share. And it's just really awesome because like the focus is they are allowed to ask any question that they want to ask, or they're allowed to share with me like this is an issue that's happening that I think you should know about.
Can you give
And
me an example? Take me through an example of one specifically.
sure. So questions are like when there's rules that they don't understand or school expectations that they don't understand, they do ask those. And it's nice to hear where they're at with that and be able to explain, why we have certain things in place. Situations they've told me to be aware about before, like it again depends on the grade level too, but if there's like vandalism in the bathroom, they make me aware of that happening. What one time it was like we didn't have the schedule worked out the right way. So there was one lunch period that when they were going to lunch, they were waiting like 4 minutes before lunch was ready, and they already have a short lunch period anyway. But I didn't realize that was happening. So we adjusted the schedule so that wouldn't happen. Just stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
like, and it's cool too, because a lot of times what they share are small things. That's why we aren't
Yeah.
aware of them, right? Because they're
Yeah.
just little. So they share them, we're able to fix them, they see the results of the meeting, which is awesome. At high school level, we have it as it's called PAC, Principal Advisory Council, and we have like a nice lunch made for them. They sign up and then they come in for lunch and share high school level, this is what I think we should be doing. This is what I think we're missing. These are opportunities I think we need. So it's just been awesome. And it's definitely a great way to get the student voice, but then also it really does make your school a community because everybody's contributing to the changes that are happening there.
Are the class meetings, is the teacher there too? So is it you, the teacher, and all the students?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So
The teacher.
you go into the classroom, like, do they call the meeting or you call the meeting? Like, does somebody just say, I want to have a meeting with you? Or do you do them like scheduled?
Yep. So some pre-corona, right? I would say to the team of teachers, I want to make sure I do a class meeting sometime between now and this date. So sometimes it was right. If you know you're going to be absent, like don't worry about doing substitute plans. I'll come to your class for the day when the substitute is there and do that.
And then you just do them there.
Yeah. Now, because students are with their teachers 2 days a week, their teachers don't want to give them up. And I totally understand that. So I've been doing it during the student lunch period. But there were times that students did come and say, like, we haven't had a class meeting and it's time we have a class meeting. And I thought that was cool because then I would recognize like there's something they need me to be aware of, you know?
Yeah. And I love how you said, because you said it's a lot of times it's the small stuff, but for them, a lot of times it's not small. Like, you know, a lot of times those are the things that they're actually dealing with all day or on a daily basis. And it's so cool that then you fix them and they realize they have a voice, right? Which gives them power and control, which is often a big reason kids misbehave, right? A big reason kids misbehave in general is they're desperate to feel power and control in their lives. And so you're giving them a feeling of that all the time.
Right. And it's neat too, because it also teaches them like those 4 guidelines kind of teach them there's a place to share what you need to share. And so just yesterday, a student brought up an issue, didn't use any names and said like, this is something I've been dealing with since 4th grade.
Wow.
I really want it addressed. I said, it will be addressed.
What was it?
Rumors that he said are being said that he doesn't, you know, but he knew, like, he just told me that little bit. So in that time, we scheduled an appointment for him to come to the office. And he said, like, in the office, I can use names, right? And I said, yes, like in the office, we can figure this out, but not,
right.
You know what I mean? Not in front of everybody. And so that kind of helps them decipher too, like when to use their filter, which is great.
There's a lot that they learn from that. They learn problem solving skills. There's a lot of things in general that they learn from doing that. I love it. Katie, listen, it was great talking to you. I'm really glad that we got to catch up after all these years. It's good seeing you on social media, and I'm really proud of everything that you're doing. I remember seeing you, 10 years ago in that classroom, and I remember thinking to myself, this girl's going places. Like I could just feel that about you. And I'm happy for everything that you're accomplishing and everything that you're doing. And it's so much fun to see. And if there's anything that I can do to help you or be a part of it with you, I would love to do that. So how can people get in touch with you if they would like?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter, active on Twitter at Ralston K. Ralstonk.
And she hosts a chat on, is it the first Thursday? It's the tell.
You're right. First Thursday of every month is Western New York Ed Chat. So hashtag WNY Ed Chat. So join us.
But you don't have to be from Western New York like we are, okay? Because pretty soon I'm going to be in Florida and I'm still going to join your chat every once in a while.
Yeah, we had people from British Columbia last week.
That was cool. That was cool.
From Utah. So yeah, so please do sign on. Find me on Twitter. I'd love to hear from people.
It's one of the cool things I feel like about Twitter is, you go on there and then there's just people from all over the world that can find you by using one hashtag. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great networking.
It really is. All right, Katie, appreciate it so much. Everybody, don't forget to what's that?
I said, thanks, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome. Don't forget to download. Don't forget to rate. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to shout us out on social media. And you can find me, you know where to find me, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'll be back with you same time next week. Until then, I say peace. I'm out of here.